Welcome to AboutFACE Theatre presents 5 Questions With, and today's guest, actor Mark Lambert. In an illustrious career, Mark has worked at theatres in London, Dublin, and around the world, including multiple appearances in the West End, roles with the Hampstead Theatre, the RSC, and the Young Vic, numerous productions with the Abbey and the Gate, and recently in the Ferryman with the Royal Court and on Broadway. His many accolades include Olivier and Irish Times Theatre Award nominations, while he has directed shows at the Royal Lyceum, the Tricycle in London, and the Abbey, among others, while his extensive TV credits range from Cracker and Vanity Fair to recent roles in the South Westerlies and Women on the Verge. Mark, you're very welcome.
Nice to be here. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, lovely to talk to you.
Great.
So, Mark, the first question is just what play or experience first got you into theatre?
Okay, well, I, oddly enough, at school, I was very keen in rugby, and I was quite good at it, but I was a bit short, a bit small for it, but I was very good, and I played it actually up till university in Manchester. I played for the first there. My father was a rugby international for Ireland, but I was never going to be big enough. But we went on a rugby tour to England, and I was already doing things like I played Beatrice in Much Ado About Nothing.
One of my games.
It may be time for me to revive some of these performances, actually. Especially as, you know, so white middle-aged men aren't quite getting the roles they used to get. So I was playing these characters, and I was playing Beatrice, and I was captain of the under 14 rugby team at the same time. Unfortunately, at the school, the rugby coach, which is unusual, was a fanatic Shakespeare lover and drama lover. And so it was quite normal to be playing rugby and doing drama. There was no
brilliant
match, which was wonderful. And I rather would wish that on any school, really.
Yeah.
Really does. So, and he saw lots of comparisons, which actually I do too, in terms of teamwork and all that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Scoring tries. I said to somebody the other day about reading parts for actors, where you read a script and you say, okay, and you could make this about any sport actually, but where you look at a part and you go, doesn't matter about the size of the role, it's actually whether you can actually score a goal when you're on stage, i.e. even a servant, if you've got something there. And it's actually a measure, I think, for writers as well, because I've tragically turned down working with Trevor Nunn in the National London, quite a chunky role. I read the play, it was actually Way of the World. I read the play 4 times in a row, desperate to find one single line where I thought I could do something with that to score a goal, to make some impression. And I couldn't. It was one of those extraordinary roles, which often occur, it doesn't often occur, but in a lot of plays, there's sometimes a role, and it need not be small, but there's nothing you can do about it. You're just there to serve up, to be a cipher. And if you're a young actor doing it, of course you do it. As an older, wizened guy like me, you think, well, it's got to be some benefit for, you know, transporting myself over to it. Anyway, we went on a rugby tour, and I was 16, and we went to see, he took us on the way to some, I don't know, it was Epsom or some school we were playing in England. We were playing a couple, and then we went to Wales. Went to see London Assurance. The Royal Shakespeare Company did London Assurance at the Aldwych, which they used to inhabit for a long time. And Donald Sinder was in it, Sinead Cusack was in it, Norman Rodway, who was an Irish actor, was in it. And it was extraordinary. For me, it was just mind-bendingly brilliant, and made sense of the kind of drama and the comedy I've been doing. And my parents took me to the Gate, the Abbey, a lot of, you know, Rathgar and Rathmines, you know, Mikado and all those things like that, and to see Rosie Linehan, Fergus Linehan, the Ablana doing the comedy sketch shows, etc., etc. So I always had an interest. My father was a vet, was interested not in the theatre, but he liked going to see shows. And my mother or my mother dragged him along, which is probably the truth. Not the case. So I then, I saw that show, and I didn't then go, that's it, I'm going to become an actor. I was at a school where, you know, you should have really, the idea was that you became a doctor or a stockbroker or something like that. I was middle class school. And but I was very interested and kept doing, you know, Son of Man, playing Jesus Christ as Son of Man, and the Scottish play, and all these parts that were great, and I enjoyed them thoroughly. And then I had intended to become a vet, but I was too stupid at maths, physics, and chemistry. So I told my father I couldn't do it, but I didn't say I was going to become an actor, but I said I'm, you know, somewhere along the arts and all that. And then tried to get into Trinity to do English, and ended up doing single honours drama at Manchester University, which was an academic degree. As part of the module of that, you could do performance studies. And at the age, I was 19, at the age of 24, Patrick Mason was doing that as his second job after leaving Central School of Speech and Drama. He was at 24, the lecturer in performance studies. And brilliant, isn't it? One of the criteria of getting into that course was saying you didn't want to become an actor because they didn't want that. And actually, out of my year, there was only about 2 of us that went on to acting. And one of the people who went on to be acting was Sheila Stevenson, the playwright who wrote The Memory of Water, who's remained a very good friend ever since we disastrously went out with each other in 1900, never you mind, whatever it was. So, but it was so we did that, and obviously he was very Peter Brook at the time, hugely influenced by him, and we did sort of Pericles with a girl from the London Contemporary Dance Theatre as a mature student with Bowls of Fire, and we toured that around. It was great experience, and very grateful to him for that little introduction to another form of theatre than just comedy review, which I was also doing at the same time, sort of 2 different types. But I was very keen on, wrote sketches for comedy reviews, both there. And then subsequently, I went to the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School after that, as a mature student to 1 year. And the principal said, you need 2 years. And so I said, right. No, he actually, the truth of the matter, he said, am I allowed to swear on this?
Yes, absolutely.
Let it out.
He said he used to have a cigarette that was the ash was falling off. He was a mentor to Peter O'Toole and various people. He was a wonderful guy. But he said, I was doing the 1 year course, and after a week, he said, you're wasting your fucking time doing the 1 year course. And I said, why? And he said, well, A, you need 2 years, and B, it's a useless course anyway, even though he was running. And he was right. So we did the 2 year course, and they're mainly postgrads. And of course, we postgrads knew why we were there. In some ways, it's a good thing. And whereas the ones who were doing the 3 year course, including Dan Day-Lewis, I don't know what happened to him, but a lot of those people didn't know, they were kind of growing up like you do at university and enjoying yourself. We were kind of there knowing we were actually on borrowed time, and we were very lucky to be there. So, and I was like, to pay my way, I was caretaker of the school and got free lodgings and all, worked down at the Theatre Royal Bar and all that. And that was really the start of things. And I said, I'll give acting 2 years. And if it's not working out, I'll do something else. And I've been doing it ever since. So.
Wow.
It's good. It's a nice grounding. But to answer your question is really long-windedly, I guess that play made such an impression. It was a wonderful play, which I actually subsequently did in the Gate many years later. And to be honest, rather sadly, certain people who I won't mention were in it, thought it was actually said after the first read through, this is a very silly little play. And they said, it's really rather, and I remember being shocked and saying, well, why are you doing it? And they said, well, it's a job. And I was so shocked by the cynicism of that. And it was, and it should have been, I'm not likening Alan Stanford to Donald Sinden, but it should have been Alan Stanford's greatest moment. But something went wrong anyway, and it wasn't a great production, but I enjoyed revisiting it anyway.
Yeah.
That was my first introduction.
Amazing. Amazing.
Okay, so Mark, so London Assurance is like a big influence on you. But what's a great play that you love and why?
Okay, a great play, I've got a couple, if that's all right, but one of them, without any shadow of a doubt, would be, for me, in an Irish context, Juno and the Peacock. You can, of course, choose Hamlet. I've been in Hamlet a couple of times, but actually Juno and the Peacock, in terms of my enjoyment of theatre, when it's done right, you've got that extraordinary mixture of tragedy and comedy. It's got that perfect balance if it's done well. And we've seen many productions where the balance wasn't there. It's either too funny, or it's not funny enough, or it's too tragic. And I do think it ranks as one of, certainly in the 20th century, one of the great plays of the 20th century. And it wasn't because I ended up, well, I've been in it twice. I was in it, first job in London, I was the co-block vendor and first gunman in the Trevor Nunn's production with Judi Dench as Juno. And it was my first production in London. And then I got promoted to Jerry Devine because the actor Frank Grimes went off to play Hamlet with Lindsay Anderson. And I got treved, which is where an arm comes around your shoulder and said, "Would you like to play?" And I said, "Let me think about it." Yes. And I played that, and it was fantastic. We used to call ourselves at that time the provisional RSC, because we were Irish company in the Royal Shakespeare Company, but the Wimpy Boys, we bought more paddies every year. But we did actually, it was great, and there was wonderful people in it, and it was a great start for me in London. It was a huge start for me in London, where I spent the next 17 years. So that was fantastic. But the play itself has, so I think, extraordinary sort of the ability to, but I think it's quite a feminist play, actually. I mean, I think of the main people who have got, although it's weighted, people remember it for the Captain Boys and the Joxers, but the message coming from the women who had to suffer is an extraordinary play given the time, where he recognized and particularly Juno, who has to work, who's basically holding up the family completely in one hand. There's no, I mean, the men are completely, all of them are feckless and useless. And most of the women, one way or another, are kind of heroic in one way or another as well. And so he was way ahead of his time in that respect. And but the ability to make us laugh and then bring us to extraordinary depths of empathy and emotion, I just think is not unparalleled. There were lots of other examples in 20th century writing, but one of my favorites, obviously. And obviously Joxer, which I played and had a fantastic time with. That has got to be one of my favorite roles. Done. A nasty little bastard, but actually it was funny as well. I likened it to a little boy playing in a muddy puddle. It was one of the
That's a great metaphor.
So I appreciate that. And then another play which I could, I wouldn't hold up as, maybe I should talk about it in a different context, and maybe it's going to be covered in a different way, but Our Country's Good, which was an extraordinary experience for me. But I don't know whether you want to talk about that in a separate issue, because I'm almost religious about that. So, great. But certainly Juno is, to answer your question, Juno would be one of my favorites. And obviously, Hamlet, Wait for Godot, all those great plays, obviously, and actually The Crucible as well, which I've never been in, but I think that's an extraordinary play as well.
Great, yeah.
And the Gilly concert. Which is one of those plays we were discussing the other day that has never, for some reason, travelled really. And yet, I just think it's one of the most extraordinary Irish plays ever written. I just think it's extraordinary, but I don't know why. I think maybe it's particular to an Irish psyche, which Tom Murphy tapped into, that doesn't necessarily relate, other nationalities find hard to relate to, but that would be my other favourite play.
Lovely.
Absolutely.
Great. So Mark, can you tell us about a time in your theatre life, and you've already hinted at a few, but where things didn't turn out the way you expected them to?
Are you talking about disappointments, or because I've many disappointments where shows were, I was supposed to go to the West End, or I was supposed to go to Broadway. I've got shows like that, Molly Sweeney being a case in point, which I was in, and for some reason or another, which I've yet to divine, I did it in Dublin, then London at the Almeida, and we were all set. We got rave reviews in the New York Times, and for some reason we were replaced. T.P. McKenna and myself were replaced. Jason Robards, I understood, but otherwise, I have no idea. There was lots of probably commercial reasons, who knows, but it wasn't Broadway, it was off Broadway. There were other great shows like Month in the Country, which gave him the gate, which was offered a West End run, and that didn't happen. I think Brian stopped that for some reason. But there were other moments where it's a more searching question as to where things didn't work out is a more interesting question than me taking particular moments where I didn't get a show that didn't travel. Because I had my opportunities in the West End and in America and stuff, but I guess truthfully, I regret never having had the opportunity of running a theatre. And I'm 66 on Saturday. And
happy birthday!
Thank you. And I don't feel a day over 65. But I do think that I would love to have run. I didn't pursue it. I mean, I think that was the thing. I didn't pursue it, but I kind of wish I had in some respects. And perhaps if I had not straddled and spent so much time in London and then coming back here and then go back to London. And I directed, as you know, I've directed quite a few shows, but never considered myself as a director. I was an actor who directed. I didn't put myself in that position. There was one or two occasions where people did suggest that I did.
Yeah.
And I perhaps didn't take myself seriously enough, and I probably could, because I would love what I do. One of the greatest pleasures I get, even as a director, is not just the collaborative nature of the work, which I don't think happens enough, but also just promoting and surrounding yourself with good people. And I never, ever understood. I mean, obviously, the simple psychological point of view, you can say it's about ego when it doesn't happen. But I can never understand why people don't build those teams and then imbue other people's responsibility. One of the things that I know I could have done, who knows, but maybe by dosage, maybe there'll be a sudden change from pursuing youth to saying actually experience does count.
Yeah.
And I'm not bitter, I promise you I'm not. But there is a tendency to think that age and thing is, it means that you've gone. I mean, most people I know are as radical and open-minded, the people I know, as they go in their 20s and 30s. So, but nevertheless, it's not that I understand about, concentrating on bringing people through and young people running things. I've absolutely understood that totally. But I do feel I'd love to have had that opportunity of handpicking people and giving them the responsibility as well. Which, in a funny kind of way, people like Richard Eyre and what's his name that was with him, they were so good at that. They gave the responsibility and they said, look, just you run that. I trust you to do that. as opposed to thinking I've got to do all this myself. And in some cases that's necessary because there aren't people around you that can do that. I would like to have had that opportunity to do that, but I'm not sad about it. That's an answer to your question. That's something that I would like to have done. I enjoy. There's nothing more exciting for me than my partner is an agent, and I enjoy sometimes saying, I've done a lot of teaching, like hit and run teaching. So I go into the gated course where you go in for a bit and come out. But I'm directing plays within the colleges, and I love being able to say, "Oh, this person's interesting," and also I've had the benefit of that. When I directed my first play at the Abbey, which was a very serious play called Hunt for Red Willie. It wasn't serious at all. And I remember the late Carl Shields, God rest him, saying to me, "I've got an actor for you." I said, and it was DP, David Pearce. And I just love that when somebody recommends, you go, okay, you've recommended one person, I'm going to see him. And it's not that you automatically, but it's great when that happens. And that was Stephen's first show and all that. And I love that way of people in our business. There is that generosity and interest and respect, which is great. And I think if anything has stopped progress in theatre is ego and self-protection and people saying, well, it's like we were having a discussion today about saying, I don't want to work with them because I don't like them. You say, well, does it really matter if they're good and if they cause trouble, of course. But so what? You don't have to work with people you adore. It's not, you can have raging, I've been in some very happy rehearsal rooms that have produced nothing. Sometimes when the two come together and you do get on, it's great. But I've also been ones where people tearing lumps out of each other has produced great work. So we shouldn't be afraid of that. It's about what you bring to the table, not about whether you're good in the pub or good crack and bake nice cakes, whatever, If only. Yeah.
So anyway, so Mark, go ahead.
No, that's what I, in terms of answering your question about things that I sort of missed or regretted, that would be one of them. I mean, moments of being out of work, I don't consider them a problem at all. I mean, I had them when I was younger. I drove a van in London numerous times in between jobs, and I thought it was most of the time. There was one or two occasions, so I thought, well, that's it. Maybe I'm a van driver. And it was like a great moment in Edmund, David Mamet's play, where he has the waitress, and he said, "Say you're a waitress." He said, "I'm an actress." "You're a waitress." "I'm an actress." "I'm a waitress." Like this. We all recognize that. And I had that as a van driver for a short bit. And I drove a van delivering delicatessen food around London. And at one stage, the other van driver was Hugh Grant, who had come down from Oxford and said, "Yeah, I think I'm going to do a bit of acting." I go, "Yeah, good luck with that, mate." He was the other van driver.
Maybe I should start driving a van. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you never know who you might be, But I haven't seen him since, but who knows? But yeah, so yeah, being out of work is part of the thing, and getting, that's normal. And as long as the gaps aren't too huge and you don't get too disillusioned, then it's good. But I think I was lucky in many respects. I suppose the age I am, there was more theatre. There was an activity, and I don't know, I think there was just more theatre and maybe less actors, who knows, when I started. But I certainly, was never out of work for more than about 3 months, I suppose, in my career. It was not as good as I once, it was me name dropping, sorry, I didn't mean to name drop, but I did ask Judi Dench, because I worked with her twice. I said to her, "What's the longest you've been out of work?" And she said, 3 weeks in my whole career. And she said that when she was 70. I was in All's Well That Ends Well with her at the RSC.
Amazing.
A retired clown, and she said 3 weeks. thought, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Remarkable.
Nice,
yeah.
nice for some. But
So,
you know,
anyway,
she's all right though. She's not bad.
it's okay. I taught her a few things, obviously.
Obviously.
She was I quoted quite a lot, numerous occasions, apart from the fact that she's fun and, you know, bold and naughty and all those things, but highly professional. But one of the things, both when I worked with her twice, one of the things that always struck me was the way she would walk on actors, whether it was me or whatever it was, even as Jerry Devine, she'd walk downstage, turn upstage, and give you the stage for your bit.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was so fantastic, because it was not just generous, but actually in the end makes sense, because a lot of people who play lead roles think, I've got to be out there doing this all the time. Cyril Cusack once said, when I was doing Three Sisters to one of his daughters, when he was horribly upstaging them in the attic scene, when he's supposed to be asleep, and he said, I can't do nothing. You see, they've come to see me. I can't do nothing. And you go, but don't you understand that it's maybe they have come to see you, but you don't need to, you know, otherwise you end up like that 17th century, I think it was Thomas Beton or something. He used to walk, when he was playing Hamlet, he walked off stage because he wasn't speaking, because he thought, well, there's no point in me being on stage. It's like insane. So anyway, but there's that sort of thing. But Judi Dench would know, and then she'd turn downstage to a bit, and everybody was going, fantastic, it's great to see you again.
Yeah.
And by the way, she didn't always, when she did give you the stage, she often was kind of looking at her hand and taking a yawn. It wasn't like she was engaged beautifully, listening to your pearls of wisdom. But that, I didn't mind that. That was great. Yeah. She was just like, go ahead, it's your turn now, which is great. Yeah. Very generous and very lovely and remarkable, just a great actress. So it was very great pleasure work with her, obviously. But would be one of the highlights, I suppose, of my career as well.
Yeah.
So I've forgotten the question now.
No, we haven't asked you the next one. You answered that one beautifully. You answered it beautifully. Yeah.
So Mark, so you've had like an amazing career in the theatre. You've worked in the West End, Broadway, the RC, and you've also had this extensive TV career. So what is it that keeps you coming back to the theatre? What moves you? What excites you about theatre?
Well, there are two things, I suppose. I mean, there are more than two things. There's lots of things, but I think it's interesting when, you know, first basic kind of thing was when I remember the principal of Bristol Vic Theatre School all asked us in a circle on our first day, why do you want to become an actor? What makes you want to? And lots of people have these esoteric reasons as to, you know, educating the masses and, you know, bringing theatre, you know, and especially, you know, the humanity, what humanity means. And I rather facetiously said, but it's also an element of truth, that I just enjoyed showing off, and I enjoyed the collaborative process of teamwork and all that. Now, they were very simple answers. Obviously, there's more than that. But in terms of coming back to it as a medium, I've had too many experiences where I felt people have, and it's not, you know, there's no pretension that it happens very seldom, where people genuinely learn something and understand something and are moved by it to the point where it's psychologically beneficial. I know that sounds really odd thing to say. There was, it's, you know, there's lots of things about, you know, empathy and understanding, and I do believe it, because I can't understand why it's not on every single syllabus. And we'll come around to this subject again in a minute, but the prison drama, whether it's not just drama, obviously it's music and art and all these things, it puts people in touch with themselves in a way of learning empathy and understanding of each other. And on top of that, then to do it in front of an audience with a collective experience. So for all the TV and film and those things that I've had, there've been some wonderful moments of fun and pleasure, but there's been nothing to compare when you are in a new play that works and that people are moved by, and success is not necessarily the word, because success can mean different things to different people. But when an audience immediately, like the first night of Observe the Sons of Ulster marching towards the Somme, you know, those sort of moments where people are so moved and given a perception understanding, when Frank McGuinness was writing about, you know, the Protestant influence, on what the culture which they had sort of, but why they were what they were, because of the Titanic and the First World War, the Somme, and Home Rule, and all these things that were, so you get an education, and those things that every time you come across certain plays, it's like almost going back to school, and you learn a subject. So if I'm doing, for example, I've directed it 3 times now, The Grapes of Wrath, for example, you know, one of the great pleasures in the first few days of rehearsal is to set everybody homework to study what the music of the period, the food, what the starvation levels were like, or what education they had, what the weather was like, you know, all those things which feed into the world of the play. And you have this extraordinary, and then you just, of course, alongside, you know, blocking and all this, you allow those moments to filter in. So the whole ensemble is at one with what that world is. And if you get that right, it's such a pleasure. I mean, I was directing that one, not in it. But I've had such pleasure doing that play, the Steppenwolf version, albeit. But it's because you learn comprehensively about that time and what happened to people and how they were treated. And then you've got the script on top of that, and the parts which are good, and people are amused and saddened, and it's just a great collective collaborative experience. And I must say, those sort of moments in the theatre, I find that that people tap in. I've been there as a member of the audience, and I've been there as an actor, where you feel a connection and you feel somehow you've gone a bit further than just mere entertainment. But on the other hand, it's also part of the pleasure of the theatre at Lavington is simply entertaining and sitting in the same room and hearing people laugh and forget their own problems or of the day for those couple of hours. It's and it doesn't always happen. We've all been in shows where I was in one particular show in the Peacock in the Abbey, written by Douglas Kennedy, one of the great, big, successful multi-millionaire novelist, where you kind of want to apologize to the audience before the show starts. Like, I'm really sorry. This is just, I'm terrible. They're terrible. and you kind of go, so it's not, we know that it's about, you know, hit and miss failure, you know, fail better, but it is, when it works, it's extraordinary. And I think it will always survive. And there was a little thing just before you got at the I picked out from, actually, oddly enough, it was Richard Eyre, because just about 5 minutes before I came on, I just thought there was something, and I couldn't remember what it was, and I haven't read it for a while, but it goes, Richard Eyre wrote, "To see and hear an actor on a stage, a character in a play, is to be invited to share someone else's view of the world, and to be reminded of the scale and frailty of human beings, of the smell of mortality, if you like. And any work of art reminds the leaders that the led are not ciphers, that all are I, and not to them. In our age," said Auden, "the mere making of a work of art is itself a political act." And I kind of buy into that. I know that's somebody else articulating certain things, but I really do tell you, when it's right, it really does. And, you know, people in Ireland have mocked David Hare for his political plays, but he really does take a subject, whether it's the British public railway system, and he makes a fantastic, and we have our own Colin Murphy who's trying to, and I don't want to see theatre just like that. you know, obviously, but there's a place for it in Ireland that is so necessary. Direct, you know, taking issues that are important and dealing with them. And then you've got the other side where you've got Chekhov, where there's no political issues, but it's human issues of just people behaving and how we understand each other and the human condition. So you've got all that potential within the theatre, which you have one or the other. I mean, I have been critical of the last number of years in the Abbey because I felt there was more issue driven. So the plays were more about issues and politics as opposed to, and it's about a balance. There's nothing wrong with that, but balancing with plays that merely, you know, it's like one of the problems when I go back to saying about entertainment and comedy is that as Jonathan Miller said, that comedy is the poor relative of theatre, and he didn't believe that himself. He said that's the way it's regarded, and people think, well, I can't just put on a silly play because that would seem unsophisticated and not. Of course, you've got to do that as well as putting on Long Day's Journey into Night, which is also a favourite play of mine. I was in that as well. So I love that play as well. But Eugene O'Neill, what a fantastic writer he is.
Oh yeah. So this is brilliant. So you touched a little bit like on empathy and things like that, but what skills from theater have you found most helpful in the rest of your life, in those 3 months between?
I think that's a hilarious question, I have to say, because I was thinking, well, I haven't learned to build brick walls. I learned to drive before I think so. Could I learn to cook? I did learn I learned to lie better. So that you say, you know, and in a funny kind of a way, it's an awful thing to say. You know, you stop by the police. Well, my God, my performance is superb. All my training, humility, you know, comedy, it's all there to get off the thing. So it's like, so I think certainly you have to talk about a skill. I think lying is the best way to describe it. But it's also, you know, in real life, you've got to learn, because you have to learn as an actor, and this is where I go back to this thing of prison, and I haven't spoken about Our Country's Good, which is one of the most, I suppose, satisfying and moving pieces of theatre I've ever been involved in terms of feeling a direct effect on an audience. And that, but one of the processes was going to Women's Scrubs prison in the workshop period and seeing prisoners put on a play. And I remember the director of that was talking about we met these people, not as part of the thing, we were just part of a 40 people that could go. It was an open on time out. So if you want to go to the theatre, you can come to Women's Scrubs and see Howard Barker's production of Victory, one night only, performed by the prisoners of Women's Scrubs. As it happens, they were all murderers, all these people. They all came back after the applause and they had 10 minutes to talk to, some of them had friends, not many. Some had family, not many. And a lot of them, people I spoke to had nobody there, but we just talked and we said, oh, I'm an actor. We just happened to come along. We're doing this play, which at that stage was only half written by Timberlake Wertenbaker, and about convicts putting on a play in Australia 200 years ago. And extraordinary stuff came out of it. But one of the things was the learning, and the director of that said that these guys, one of the things was that learning to do drama, you've got to understand what you're doing to the other person. So you're learning, if I punch you in the face, it hurts you. And some of these people don't understand that. It's a kind of weird disconnect. And that in the process of drama, you've got to understand what's going on inside other people's mind. And you learn by dint of doing it, empathy and sympathy, which makes you a better human being. So without getting too religious about it, but I did feel that about drama and prisons and Our Country's Good in particular gave you that thing where you saw the process of drama making people better people. And I can't understand to this day why it's not. I mean, of course, there's a whole issue of, you know, which is actually discussed in our country, is good, that they're there to be punished, not to enjoy themselves. But if you even any form of reform and making people better human beings, not sending them out to re-offend, then you've got to educate and involve them in some form of, not just educate, but you've got to involve themselves in something that makes them understand how other people tick and offer sympathy. And that's where drama comes into its own, in my opinion, and will always do that, because there is no, even writing and painting, those are all worthy and wonderful things, but drama is about social interaction, and there's nothing like that. And in fact, you know, I always say, people say about actors and our fraternity of theatre, in 42 years of working, I've met very few shits. I really have. I mean, obviously you come across it. There's always a bit of a shock when you meet somebody. It's really unpleasant. But it really happens so seldom, because I think people have, you know, the mix of all those things, we go, why would you have a problem with, you know, that person who's different and that person who's different? You know, I mean, you know, people can be bitchy and, you know, critical of each other and moan and all those things, but not really deep dislike or hatred, you know. So it's kind of one of the lucky, I'm very fortunate for us to be in this world in that sense, you know. It's one of the payoffs to the hardship of struggling and, you know, trying to make ends meet in other respects, but there's a huge fulfillment and pleasure of it. So in terms of learning, I guess that's it. I mean, you know, I haven't learned, as I said, even to fence or any of those things that you do. Horse riding, maybe I've done that in a few films and TVs and stuff, but I guess that's it. And of course, I have been able and fortunate and very grateful to be able to diversify from just being an actor to directing and theatre, but also radio, not film yet, but you know, lots of other things. And I do enjoy teaching as well. I didn't want to be a teacher, but I love teaching, and I think I highly recommend it as well, because it's and giving back something to what I've learned as well. So I think that, and also one of the biggest things about that you learned is how to be a child, and relearning to be childish, because that was one of a complete necessity for an actor, is to engage in the child and be you know, open enough and silly enough and brave enough and mad enough as a child that you are, before you start inhibiting yourself and restricting yourself and all that, you know. So that's the answer to that one.
Great.
Well, Mark, this has been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. As a bonus question, can you tell us anything about what you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, I'm working on a production of art that that's been around for some time, but it's a wonderful play, and I'm doing it for Donald Shields production company, and it's got the Bachelor Walk boys, Simon Delaney and Don Wycherley and Keith McAlane.
Very good.
We're in our third week, and we then stream. And unfortunately, it's a bit like the previous show I did, which is Primrose Square, written by Claudia Carroll with Marion O'Dwyer, Clellie Murphy and Megan McDonnell, who were fabulous. We streamed that, and there's something, streaming is a necessity, but it's really not satisfying, if I'm honest. But I suppose I feel that this is the process we're going through, and there's going to be a lot of those productions which hopefully you will see when the theatres fill up again. And certainly these two shows definitely, I've no doubt that they will have a future. So I'm directing is the word, and I'm not doing much acting. I was supposed to do, they were going to do The Great Hunger again, which I was acting in, and that was postponed. And there was another show in Beauties that I might still do, an American short play. So I'm still acting, I'm still fire. But it's a dangerous thing as somebody who directs. The danger is, although as I've got older, I care less, that other directors go, oh, I don't want to employ him because in some form or fashion he might judge me. In fact, the weird paradox is that the day I started directing, which is quite a long time ago, I definitely became a more focused actor. In other words, I got what I call lost. That dangerous thing is the third eye that an actor can have. Third eye is disastrous, i.e. you're rehearsing with other actors and you're thinking, oh, if they only did that, and maybe they could do this. And actually you should be getting on with what you do. And weirdly, when I started directing, I became much more focused as an actor. It doesn't matter who I'm working with, I get on with my job, and good, bad, or indifferent may the director be, I will do it. I don't mean do what they say. I will contribute, of course, and suggest things, but it's not. I'm more focused on my job as an actor rather than thinking, oh, what are they doing and what's that? So, in other words, I'm less judgmental, but they don't. They don't know that. But I think there's. I've always believed in the idea of being allowed to do that. I know there are career directors, and I've had two people in the past who ran the Abbey, and one very generous member of the who ran the Abbey who's let me direct, but two other people who felt that they were only interested in what they call career directors. And I thought that was a shame, because I think actors sometimes, not always, bring something fresh and new to the theatre, and particularly, obviously, in the area of helping other actors be better, you know, which is part of the fun of directing as well. But anyway, listen, I just go with the flow, as they say, and see what's around the corner, be it TV, theatre, whatever. And I'm still enjoying it immensely. And albeit that this recent thing, I haven't been away, as I said. And in fact, there was another example I found myself doing bizarrely at the age of, what was it, 64, 65, going to Switzerland to do to an opera company and doing Sweeney Todd. And I go, how did that happen? How did that happen? It's so you know, I'm not an opera singer. I like opera, but not an opera singer. And huge challenge. And that's part of the pleasure as well, as setting yourself challenges, you know, saying, maybe I will write that play. And there's no, you can do it at any age, you know, as long as you keep your mind open and curious, and you're on the front foot, then there's no reason why you can't mix it with all those fantastic, you know, 20-year-olds who are coming out fresh with mad ideas. You think, yeah, I'm with you there. I'm okay. So yeah, no, it's good. It's good. It's good. Good to be going. It looks like we're all getting back to normal now. And audience, I went to my first play. I went to see Peter Garron's wonderful one-man show, and in the Smock Alley the other night. I sat on the front row on my own with a full house of only 50, which is all you have. And it all seemed like it was getting back to normal. So it was rather nice.
Nice. Excellent.
We're getting there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Mark, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
No, just all those people out there. I wish everybody well, and let's get the shows back on the road. You know,
absolutely. Yeah, Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Pleasure talking to you. It's great. Really lovely to talk to you.
Great. And thank you to you, the audience, too, for joining us. If you enjoyed the interview, please like the video below and follow AboutFACE and share, because we believe theater makes life better. See you next time on AboutFACE Theater presents 5 Questions With.
If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and share. Thanks for watching.